Hey everyone. Today we're going to talk about something that should be simple, but somehow it isn't. Menstruation. Periods. The cycle that half the population experiences but barely understands, especially teenage girls. And I know because I was one of them. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Whether it's morning, evening, or somewhere in between where you are, I hope you're feeling present and ready. Now let's listen to the compelling story in this video of mine. When I got my first period, I didn't know what was happening. I knew it was a thing, sure, but the details, the why, the how, the what next, none of it made any real sense to me. I was 11, sitting in the back row of my classroom when I felt it, something unfamiliar and a little terrifying. I was wearing light-colored pants. That's all I'll say. I ran to the bathroom and just sat there, frozen, staring down like I was witnessing a crime scene. No one had told me it would be like this, sudden, messy, and so out of control. There was no magical warning. Just 1 minute I was a kid, and the next I was a woman, according to my grandmother. But I didn't feel like a woman. I felt confused, scared, a little embarrassed, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. What shocks me now, looking back, is how common my story is. You'd think by 2025 we'd have figured this out. But the truth is, many teenage girls still don't understand their menstrual cycle, even after years of having it. And not just the biology of it, but the bigger picture, how it affects mood, energy, sleep, school, sports, social life. It's wild that something so regular, so powerful, can be so poorly understood. It's not that information isn't available, it's just that we don't know when or how to talk about it. For many girls, learning about periods happens in three unhelpful phases: too early, too late, or never. Too early means you're sitting in a fifth grade classroom, watching an outdated video with cartoon ovaries and lots of awkward silences. You're too young to care, and the boys in the room are giggling. The nurse says, "Any questions?" And of course, no one raises their hand. We all just want to escape. That was our introduction. Too late means you already started bleeding, and no one explained anything. You're learning from whispers in locker rooms or guessing based on what older girls say. You pick up pads from the store and try to figure them out like some IKEA manual with missing instructions. And never is scarier. It means you've had a period for years and still don't really know what's going on. You think it's normal to cramp so bad you can't walk. You assume it's okay to bleed for 10 days straight. You believe having to miss school because of your period is just something some girls deal with. You live in the fog of assumptions, until maybe one day, something serious forces you to look deeper. When I was 15, I had a friend who thought she was dying because she had intense abdominal pain every time she ovulated. She didn't know what ovulation was. She thought her period was late, if she didn't bleed exactly 30 days after the last one. Her app said she was fertile, and that scared her, even though she wasn't sexually active. No one had ever sat her down and said, "Hey, here's what actually happens inside your body every month." You'd think schools would cover this better, right? But the truth is, menstrual education often stops at the basics. The average cycle is 28 days, bleeding lasts 3 to 7 days, and cramps are normal. That's it. No one explains the 4 phases of the cycle. No one talks about hormonal shifts or how your energy might spike during the follicular phase and crash during the luteal one. No one tells you that cravings, sleep problems, or feeling extra emotional might not mean you're crazy. It might just mean you're ovulating or your progesterone is rising. And so, we grow up with this patchy, fragile knowledge that doesn't prepare us for real life. We use apps to track, but we don't really understand. We joke about being hormonal, but we don't know why we feel that way. We just accept it as something to hide or suffer through, instead of something to observe, respect, and manage. I once had a summer job babysitting 2 girls. One was 13 and had just started her period, and the other was 10 and already worried about when hers would come. Their mom handed me a pack of pads, just in case, and whispered, "I haven't had time to give the talk." So I sat them down one day and just talked. I told them what I wished someone had told me. Not just that you bleed once a month, but why. I explained that it's a full cycle with ups and downs and that their bodies weren't broken or weird. They were wise, rhythmic, strong, And the look in their eyes? Relief. Like something finally made sense. Why do we wait so long to have these conversations? Why do we let girls feel confused for years when a simple explanation could change everything? If we treated the menstrual cycle not as a shameful secret, but as a key to self-awareness, maybe more girls would walk into adolescence with confidence instead of dread. I didn't start really understanding my cycle until I was 23. That's 12 years of guessing. 12 years of thinking I was just sensitive, or just bloated, or just emotional, for no reason. 12 years of blaming my body for being unpredictable, when in reality it was doing exactly what it was meant to do. What changed everything for me? A book, a podcast, and finally a doctor who actually listened. She showed me a chart of the menstrual phases and asked me to start tracking how I felt, not just when I bled, but my mood, energy, appetite, sleep. Within 2 months, I saw the pattern. It was like solving a puzzle I didn't know I'd been working on. If I could go back and talk to my 11-year-old self in that bathroom stall, I wouldn't just hand her a pad, I'd hand her a mirror. I'd say, this doesn't mean you're broken. This means your body is powerful. Learn it, know it, trust it. And that's where we begin. The first time I really noticed something was off was during finals week. I'd been crying over an algebra worksheet for 20 minutes, convinced I was a failure, when I realized my period had started earlier that morning. Again, I was 16. You'd think I'd be used to it by now, but every month it felt like I was being hijacked by someone else's emotions, someone else's body. And still, I didn't put the pieces together. No one had told me that PMS wasn't just cramps and chocolate cravings, that it could be low self-esteem, anxiety, irritation at everything and everyone, even sadness that comes out of nowhere like a storm. I thought I was just moody, or lazy, or broken. And the worst part? I blamed myself. A lot of girls do. Confusion around the menstrual cycle isn't just inconvenient, it's harmful. We grow up mislabeling symptoms and internalizing guilt. A girl who doesn't know why her mood crashes right before her period might think she's just bad at coping. A girl who bleeds heavily and thinks that's normal might miss out on treating a medical issue like endometriosis. A girl who has irregular cycles and extreme fatigue might not realize she has PCOS until it's been affecting her for years. It's not just about comfort, it's about health. I once had a classmate who fainted in the hallway because her iron levels dropped too low from heavy periods. Her mom thought she was just being dramatic. It took 3 months of missed school, multiple ER visits, and finally a female pediatrician before someone diagnosed her with a bleeding disorder. She had been bleeding like that for years, and no one had thought to ask why. It's almost like we've all agreed to accept menstrual suffering as just part of being female. Oh, cramps? That's normal. You miss school because of your period? Just tough it out. You feel like your uterus is in a vice? Here, take this ibuprofen. But what if it's not normal? What if it's something that needs attention? I had a friend in college who didn't realize that ovulation pain had a name, middle schmerz, until she saw it on TikTok of all places. She thought she was having digestive problems. Every month, around day 14, she'd get a sharp pain on one side of her lower belly and feel nauseous. She'd cut out dairy, go to urgent care, take random supplements, but no one connected it to her cycle. Another girl I knew didn't realize her mood swings and migraines were linked to her period until she started logging symptoms for her therapist. Suddenly, there was a pattern, a hormonal wave behind all of it. And when she understood the pattern, she stopped blaming herself. That's the power of knowing your cycle. But most girls are stuck in the dark, or worse, they're stuck in misinformation. They hear myths like, you can't get pregnant on your period. You're supposed to have a 28-day cycle. Tampons can get lost inside you. Period blood is dirty. And when you combine confusion with shame, silence, and pain, that's a recipe for long-term harm. Think about how many misdiagnoses are hiding behind the phrase, just bad cramps. How many girls are silently suffering from fibroids, endometriosis, hormonal imbalances, or anemia, and not speaking up because they think what they're going through is just part of being a woman. And then there's the emotional side. The cycle affects everything: sleep, appetite, memory, focus. Girls who are exhausted during the luteal phase, the week before the period, may feel like they're underachieving in school. Girls who feel overwhelmed with emotion and don't understand why might think they're unstable or weak. The truth is, they're cycling. Their bodies are shifting hormones like estrogen and progesterone, chemicals that literally change how your brain processes emotion and energy. When I finally learned how to map my energy and mood across the 4 phases, menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal, it was like someone handed me a user manual for myself. I realized why I was more productive some weeks, more social in others, and more introverted right before bleeding. I wasn't broken. I was just cycling. But here's what hurts. We could be teaching this to every teenage girl right now, and we're not. Instead, we're giving them vague advice like track your period, or don't forget a pad in your backpack. We're not saying, hey, the week after your period, you might feel super clear-headed and energized. That's the follicular phase. You can use it to your advantage. Or, right before your period, you might need more rest and compassion. That's your luteal phase. You're not lazy, you're syncing with your body. If we taught girls this earlier, we could spare them years of confusion. Even just knowing what's normal and what's not could save so many from unnecessary suffering. Here's what I wish someone had told me at 16. If you're bleeding for more than 7 days, it's worth checking out. If you're missing school because of cramps, that's not something to just deal with. If your cycle is shorter than 21 days or longer than 35, there could be a hormonal imbalance. If you feel like a completely different person for half the month, that's not your fault, and you're not alone. So many girls are trying to navigate this maze blindfolded. They think they're weak when they're actually strong but misinformed. They think they're the only ones struggling, when really, this silence has made everyone feel isolated in something that's completely natural. What breaks my heart is how preventable so much of this is. If I had just one message for any teenage girl watching this, it would be this: you're not supposed to suffer. Your period is a message, not a punishment. And the more you learn to understand it, the more powerful you become. Because once you understand what's happening inside of you, you stop being afraid of it. You stop resenting your body and start partnering with it. And that's a game changer, not just for your health, but for your whole life. I remember sitting in a doctor's office when I was 17, clutching a little paper cup of water and waiting for someone to finally explain what was going on with me. I'd been having intense periods, like curl up on the bathroom floor intense, for over 2 years. My mom thought I was being dramatic. My PE teacher said I should push through. The nurse at school just handed me ibuprofen. But this time, I was here to get answers. The doctor? She glanced at my chart, smiled politely, and said, "Sounds like normal period cramps. It's just part of being a woman." That was it. 5 minutes, no further questions, no real discussion, just normal. And I left that appointment feeling invisible. If you're wondering why so many girls still don't understand their menstrual cycles, here's a big part of the problem. The adults around them aren't explaining it well. It's not just schools that fall short. It's parents. It's doctors. It's even mentors and coaches. Most of the time, they either avoid the topic entirely or they use such vague, sanitized language that girls walk away more confused than before. My mom, bless her heart, gave me the talk when I was 10. She told me, one day you'll bleed a little each month. It means your body is getting ready to have babies someday. And then she handed me a box of maxi pads and left the room. That was the extent of my education. No mention of hormones, no discussion of mood changes, and definitely no explanation of ovulation or the cycle's phases. And she wasn't trying to hurt me. She just didn't know how to say more. Her mom hadn't told her much either. I've talked to girls who were handed tampons by older sisters with a wink and told, "You'll figure it out." Others got scolded for asking questions because that's not something we talk about in this house. Some were told myths passed down through generations, like not washing your hair during your period, or not exercising because it might ruin your fertility. We've created this weird vacuum where menstruation is biologically significant but socially invisible. It happens every month, it affects millions of people, and yet we whisper about it. Or worse, we joke about it like it's some kind of curse. "Ugh, she's PMSing again," people say, rolling their eyes, as if hormones make us hysterical monsters. So girls grow up internalizing all this silence and sarcasm. When no one's willing to talk about something openly, the message becomes clear. You're supposed to deal with this alone. Even school programs meant to help can fall flat. I remember sitting in health class in middle school while the teacher showed us a PowerPoint with cartoon diagrams. The boys were sent to a different room to learn about shaving and body odor. We were taught how to unwrap a pad without making too much noise in the bathroom stall. And at the end of it, we got a free pink pouch with a few pads and a deodorant sample. But here's what we didn't learn: that cycles vary from person to person, and 28 days is just an average. That hormones don't just cause periods, they also impact mental health. That ovulation isn't just a baby-making window, it's a key part of your health picture. That pain, fatigue, or emotional swings can be managed, but only if you understand what's going on. I remember asking a teacher, "What if your period doesn't come every month?" And she replied, "Then you're probably pregnant." I hadn't even held hands with a boy yet, but I left that classroom wondering if my body was already broken. You see the problem? Even doctors, people we trust to explain our bodies, can miss the mark. I've spoken with girls who had irregular cycles and were immediately put on birth control pills to regulate things, with zero explanation about what the pill actually does or how it affects hormones. Some girls don't realize until years later that the period you get on the pill isn't even a real period. It's a withdrawal bleed. Again, not because anyone was trying to mislead them, but because the conversations were rushed, awkward, or skipped entirely. There's a better way. What if, instead of avoiding the topic, parents leaned in? What if mom said, "Let's sit down together and look at a chart of your cycle. See how your energy might change during the month." What if dads didn't get squeamish when their daughters mentioned pads or cramps, but instead said, "How can I support you this week?" What if teachers didn't just drop off the pamphlets but hosted real conversations? What if pediatricians asked about period pain and cycles instead of brushing them off as just part of puberty? When adults show that it's okay to talk openly, girls feel less alone. They start to realize that what's happening to them isn't something to be ashamed of, it's something to understand. And that small shift in tone, from awkward silence to open dialogue, makes all the difference. Because when we talk, we learn. I remember the first time I heard a grown woman say, "I can feel when I'm ovulating. It's like a slight tug in one side of my abdomen." I was shocked. I didn't even know ovulation could be felt. But hearing her speak so casually, like it was no big deal, made me feel safer asking questions. Like maybe this wasn't some weird, shameful experience I had to figure out in secret. Maybe this was something I could get good at. Girls need that. They need adults who model that it's okay to be curious, okay to ask questions, and okay to demand answers when something feels off. Because menstrual health is health. And like anything in medicine, the more you understand, the better choices you can make. We can't expect girls to navigate this terrain alone while the adults around them are too embarrassed to hand them a map. If I could go back and change one thing, not just for me, but for every girl I've mentored since, I'd make sure someone actually explained what was happening in simple, clear terms. I'd want them to say, "Hey, this might be awkward at first, but here's what's really going on inside your body. And here's how you can understand it." Because clarity isn't just informative, it's empowering. I downloaded my first period tracking app because my best friend told me it had cute icons. I'm not kidding. There were pink hearts for ovulation, flowers for fertile windows, and little raindrops for bleeding days. It even sent push notifications like, "You might feel emotional today. Take it easy." Which, to be honest, felt weirdly comforting. But here's the thing. Despite tracking my cycle for almost 2 years with that app, I still didn't understand what was happening inside my body. And I'm not alone. Girls today are more digitally connected than ever. They use apps to track everything: steps, sleep, hydration, and yes, their menstrual cycles. But what I've learned is that tracking isn't the same as understanding. You can log data all month long, but unless someone teaches you what it means, you're still just clicking buttons and hoping the app figures it out for you. I remember checking my app one morning and seeing a big pink notification that said, "You're ovulating today." I stared at the screen like it was giving me a secret code. Ovulating? So, what? Did that mean I'd get my period sooner? Did that mean I could get pregnant if I kissed someone? I had no clue. The app didn't explain. It just dropped the label and moved on. And that's the problem. These tools are designed to be user-friendly, not educational. They tell you when, but not why. They mark phases on calendars, but they don't teach what those phases actually do. And for most girls, that's where the learning stops. Even when I was using the app religiously, logging every cramp, mood swing, and craving, I still couldn't tell you what hormones were doing what. I couldn't explain why I always got anxious 2 days before bleeding, or why I felt hyperproductive right after my period ended. I just chalked it up to coincidence, or worse, personality flaws. And to be fair, these apps have their place. They help girls start noticing patterns. They build awareness. But they don't replace education. Without actual knowledge, we end up outsourcing our understanding to software. We become passive observers of our own bodies, waiting for an app to tell us how to feel. That's not empowerment. That's dependency. One of the girls I mentor said it best. I track everything, but I still don't know what it means when my cycle is off. She'd missed her period for 2 months and assumed she was pregnant, even though she was a virgin. The app hadn't flagged anything. It just reset her calendar and kept going. Turns out she had thyroid issues that were messing with her hormones. But because she didn't know the signs, she waited way too long to get help. This is the danger of relying on tools that simplify something so complex. It's like reading a weather app that says cloudy, but never tells you there's a thunderstorm coming. You leave the house in flip-flops and get drenched. There's also another problem. Apps are often designed for the average cycle. The 28-day, bleed on day 1, ovulate on day 14 model. But very few people are average. Some bleed every 24 days. Others ovulate late. Some don't ovulate at all due to conditions like PCOS. But the app doesn't adjust for that. It just guesses, which means if your body doesn't follow the algorithm, you're left feeling like something's wrong with you. I've had girls tell me, my app said my period should start today, but it didn't, and now I'm freaking out. And all I can say is, your body is not a machine. It doesn't follow charts like train schedules. Stress, sleep, travel, illness, all of it can throw off a cycle. And if we're not taught that, we panic every time things shift a little. We need more than pink icons and push notifications. We need education that teaches girls how to interpret what their bodies are doing. Because the point of a cycle tracker isn't to predict perfectly, it's to help you understand your rhythm, your unique pattern, your body's way of communicating with you. I remember the moment I really got this. I was listening to a podcast where a health coach explained the cycle like a set of seasons. Menstrual phase was winter. Rest, reflection, low energy. Follicular phase was spring, renewal, clarity, fresh ideas. Ovulation was summer, high energy, connection, confidence. Luteal phase was autumn, slowing down, turning inward, finishing projects. And suddenly it all clicked. That's why I always wanted to reorganize my room after my period. That's why I loved giving presentations mid-cycle, but wanted to be left alone the week before bleeding. It wasn't random, it was cyclical, predictable, even once I knew what to look for. Why aren't we teaching this in schools? Why are we telling girls to download an app, but not giving them the context to understand what they're tracking? Honestly, I think it's because we still think of menstrual health as private, something personal, something you figure out on your own. But imagine if we treated it like any other subject, math, science, history. Imagine a classroom where girls learn to chart their cycle like a lab experiment, observing shifts in mood, sleep, appetite, creativity. They'd come out not just knowing when their period was due, but how to work with their bodies instead of against them. That's what true cycle literacy looks like. It's not just logging data. It's being able to read it, to respond to it, to say, okay, I'm in my luteal phase, so I might feel a little off. I'll build in some rest and not be too hard on myself. Or, I'm ovulating, this might be a good week to tackle something big. That's not soft. That's smart. And that's the kind of relationship every girl deserves to have with her body. Not one built on mystery and anxiety, but on clarity and trust. Because once you stop outsourcing your awareness to an app and start tuning in to what your own body is telling you, Something amazing happens. You begin to trust yourself. Not the predictions, not the graphs, you. And that's where real confidence begins. When I was 19, I saw a viral TikTok where a girl claimed you could cleanse your uterus with a particular type of herbal tea, and hundreds of girls were in the comments saying they had tried it. I sat there stunned, watching teenagers drink boiled leaves because someone with no medical background posted a video with soft music and pastel lighting. It wasn't even the worst I'd seen. I once saw a YouTube creator explain that you can't get pregnant if you stand up right after, and another who insisted that tampons cause infertility. The scary part? They had thousands of likes. And that's when it really hit me. Misinformation about menstrual health spreads easily and dangerously online. You'd think in the age of Google and instant answers that we'd be past this, but we're not. The truth is, there's so much content out there now that girls don't know what's fact and what's fiction. They scroll through videos, absorb little sound bites, and assume confidence equals credibility. If someone looks the part, has nice lighting, speaks clearly, and posts before and after shots, then they must be right. Right? Wrong. So very wrong. The internet is full of menstrual myths, half-truths, and flat-out lies. Some are silly, like you can't swim on your period. Yes, you can. Some are terrifying, like period blood is toxic. It's not. And some are flat out dangerous, like you can use aspirin vaginally to induce a period. Please don't. And when real education is lacking, when schools and families don't explain things clearly, this kind of misinformation fills the void. Girls start looking for answers anywhere they can find them. Reddit threads, influencer videos, DMs from strangers, and the internet answers them back with confidence, but not always with truth. I remember one girl I mentored who told me she thought her period was detoxing her soul. That's what she'd heard from a spiritual wellness coach on YouTube. Now listen, I'm not against holistic approaches or cultural beliefs, but when pseudoscience replaces basic biology, we've got a problem. This girl didn't know what ovulation was. She didn't know the difference between spotting and a true menstrual bleed. She didn't know what estrogen did, but she was drinking moon tea and talking about energetic blockages. Again, this isn't about mocking. It's about seeing the gap between what girls should know and what they're actually learning. And when that gap isn't filled by trusted sources, the internet fills it with whatever gets clicks. What makes it worse is that some misinformation is beautifully packaged. I've seen creators post hormone balancing routines with green smoothies, bath rituals, and womb healing meditations, and not once mention how hormones actually work. They never explain that PMS isn't caused by toxins, but by complex hormonal interactions between estrogen, progesterone, and serotonin. They don't say that cycle irregularities might mean something medical, something worth seeing a doctor about. Instead, they offer crystals and cleanses. And girls listen, because it feels safer than going to a doctor who might dismiss them. This is how the cycle of misinformation thrives. Girls feel confused or unheard. They seek answers online. They find influencers who speak with empathy, but not evidence. They try risky things, hoping for relief. And still, the root problems go unresolved. I've seen this play out over and over. One friend tried seed cycling for her cramps without even knowing what hormones she was trying to support. Another stopped eating gluten because an influencer said it would heal her luteal phase, but she didn't even know what phase she was in. One girl took herbal supplements that interfered with her birth control. No doctor, no supervision, just a TikTok video and some blind hope. And yes, there are some amazing educators online. Doctors, doulas, nutritionists, health coaches who truly care and explain things well, but they're often drowned out by louder voices. The flashy ones, the ones who say things like, "Your period is a lie," or "Doctors don't want you to know this one secret." And unfortunately, many girls believe it because fear sells faster than science. I don't blame them. I blame the vacuum we've left in their education. If we taught menstrual health with honesty, clarity, and context, these myths wouldn't have such power. Girls wouldn't feel desperate for answers. They wouldn't be so easy to mislead. We need to be teaching digital literacy alongside cycle literacy. We need to help girls ask questions like, who is this person I'm watching? What are their qualifications? Are they citing any sources? Do they encourage seeing a doctor or just buying their supplements? We need to say, it's okay to explore, but don't take your health advice from someone with no medical background just because they speak with authority. Learn to cross-check. Ask for second opinions. Stay curious, but stay grounded, because the consequences are real. I've known girls who delayed real diagnoses because they thought they could biohack their periods. Others who felt ashamed for not feeling aligned with their cycles after following wellness creators who made it seem easy. When the advice didn't work, they blamed themselves. I want to tell every girl this. It's not your fault that the internet makes it hard to tell truth from trend. But once you see that, you can start to ask better questions. You can build a radar for red flags. You can become your own advocate. Because yes, the internet can be a powerful source of knowledge, but only if you use it with discernment. Not every piece of advice that goes viral is right for your body. Not every cycle hack is backed by science. And not every influencer has your best interests in mind. It's not enough to sound confident. You need to be informed. And the best way to do that? Go back to the basics. Ask real questions. Read real books. Listen to experts. Talk to your doctor. And most importantly, listen to your body more than you listen to strangers on your feed. Because in the end, that's the voice that matters most. I didn't realize how much silence I'd internalized until I heard my little cousin whisper, "Can I ask you something weird?" She was 12, newly bleeding and scared out of her mind. We were sitting on the floor of my bedroom after dinner when she said it. She looked around like someone might be listening through the walls. I nodded and told her she could ask me anything. And what did she ask? "Is it true that periods mean you're dirty?" That was the moment everything in me stopped. My heart broke a little, and then it got angry. Because in 2025, after all the books, the health apps, the hashtags, and open conversations, a smart, kind, curious 12-year-old girl still felt like her body was gross for doing something it's supposed to do. And I thought, this is why we still need to talk about it. This is why the silence has to end. We've tiptoed around menstrual education for generations. We've whispered, hidden, joked, dismissed, avoided, and look where it's gotten us. A world where teenage girls still don't understand their cycles. A world where many don't even feel safe asking basic questions. A world where shame spreads faster than facts. It's time to break that cycle. Understanding your period isn't just about tracking bleeding days. It's about knowing yourself. It's about reclaiming the language that should have been yours from the start. Words like follicular, luteal, ovulation, hormones, estrogen, progesterone. These aren't dirty words. They're part of your biological blueprint. When we treat menstruation as taboo, we don't just hide a bodily function. We hide a source of power. Yes, power. Because knowledge is power. And when girls understand their cycles, they can make better decisions, not just about health, but about their lives. Think about it. A girl who knows her luteal phase might affect her sleep can plan to go to bed earlier during that week. A girl who knows ovulation makes her feel more social might schedule presentations or group work then. A girl who understands that heavy bleeding might indicate something deeper will speak up instead of suffering silently. This isn't about medical school level knowledge. It's about ownership. It's about knowing that your body isn't random. It's responsive. And when you listen, it talks back. I think of my younger self, sitting in that bathroom stall, scared and confused. No one had told me what to expect. No one said it was okay to feel emotional, or that I might want to eat everything in sight one day and nothing the next. No one explained why my energy spiked in one week and disappeared the next. I just thought I was being weird, unstable, maybe even wrong. But now I know better. And I want every girl to know better sooner. The truth is, we've waited too long for someone else to fix this. Schools aren't doing enough. Parents often don't know what to say. Doctors can be rushed. And so the responsibility lands here, with us, with anyone willing to speak up, even when it's awkward, even when it feels too personal. Because silence doesn't protect girls, it confuses them. It isolates them. It teaches them that their bodies are secrets. We have to change the script. We have to start saying, your cycle is your body's way of communicating with you. Your pain is real, and you deserve to be heard. You are not dirty. You are not dramatic. You are not broken. You are cycling, and that is something worth understanding. Let's stop pretending that handing a girl a pad is enough. Let's sit down and explain what's actually going on in her body. Let's talk about the science and the emotions, the patterns and the exceptions. Let's teach girls to chart, to question, to trust, to ask, to demand answers when something feels off. Let's normalize saying, I'm in my luteal phase and need a little extra rest. Or I ovulate around day 16, so that's when I feel my best. Let's stop flinching when someone says cervical mucus or discharge. Let's stop treating normal biology like something shameful or gross. Because what happens when girls do understand? They stand taller. They speak clearer. They know what's happening in their bodies and why. They stop blaming themselves. They stop fearing change. They start making choices that support them instead of suppressing them. And maybe most importantly, they start talking to each other. Imagine if the next generation didn't have to whisper their questions. Imagine if every 12-year-old could ask, is this normal? Without fear. Imagine a world where periods weren't taboo, but just another part of growing up, talked about with the same confidence as braces or school dances. That world starts with us, with telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, with choosing facts over myths, with saying, you're allowed to know, you deserve to know. Because understanding your menstrual cycle isn't a luxury. It's a right, it's body literacy, it's self-trust, it's care, and most of all, it's power. So here's what I told my little cousin. No, you're not dirty. Your body is smart and strong and doing exactly what it's supposed to do. This is your cycle, and it's nothing to hide. Waiting for Finish the Script